Soren and Claude are two owl brothers living in the forests of Tasmania. One day, while their parents are out hunting for food, the boys have an argument that leads to them falling out of their tree and landing on the forest floor, where they are kidnapped by two other owls. They're led away to a work camp in a place known as Saint... whatever that is, for a cult called the Pure Ones, led by a sinister warrior called Metalbeak and his wife, Naira. While there, they're told that they'll either be forced to work as makeshift miners or warriors. Soren and another owl named Gilpy, lacking any desire to be slaves, protest this and are taken away to be miners. Soren tries to call for Clud's help, but not wanting to endanger himself, Clud refuses to speak. Soren and Gilpy quickly find out that whatever the mineral they're mining for is, it seems to have a strange effect on owls in large amounts. The two quickly realize that in order to escape the Pure Ones, they need to learn to fly, and are helped with that by Grimble, a soldier for the Pure Ones, who was forced into a life of servitude for the life of his family. Grimble is soon found out by Naira, though, and confronts him with Clud at her side. Soren pleads for his brother to leave with him and his friend, but Clud, indoctrinated by the philosophy of the Pure Ones, refuses to leave and aids Naira in her fight with Grimble. Traitor! Grimble decides to hold off Naira and her soldiers just long enough for Soren and Gilpy to escape before falling to his death after sustaining a broken wing. Once out of harm's way, Soren and Gilpy encounter another pair of owls, a loony called Digger and a self-described warrior poet named Twilight. Much to Soren's delight, within their group is also Mrs. P, a small snake who is actually Clud and Soren's nanny. The five of them embark on a journey to find the legendary guardians of Ga'Hoole.
He said it! He said it!
A collection of warriors Soren had idolized from childhood, thanks to stories from his father, and that Grimble had asked Soren and Gilpy to meet with before his death. During their travels, however, a freak rainstorm splits Soren from the rest of the group, but are saved and reunited by the very guardians themselves. Now safe within Ga'Hoole, Soren and Gilpy plead their case to the Leadership Council that governs the land and leads the Guardians. The Council is skeptical of their claims, having fought and defeated the Pure Ones in the past, but sends scouts out to wherever, led by a warrior named Alamir. Meanwhile, Soren and the rest of his band are taught different tasks by an elderly teacher named Izilreeb, such as how to fight, how to craft metal, and the ability to fly with your gizzard. Soren tries to use this technique and shows brief success before having to be rescued. Once back, Soren realizes that Izilreeb isn't just an elderly teacher. He was once a famous warrior called the Lies of Keel, a figure from the stories of the Guardians that Soren had always admired in particular. Izilreeb dismisses his admiration, telling his student that there isn't anything in war that's heroic or beautiful or even glorious, much to Soren's disenchantment. Back in St. Ego, yes, I'm calling it St. Ego, things are heating up fast. Clud has not only met Metalbeak himself, but kidnapped his and Soren's own younger sister, Eglantine, hoping she'd be of use to the Pure One's cause. Clud slowly realizes that Eglantine doesn't belong with the Pure Ones, so he opts to cut her loose, albeit in a catatonic state. Sir Alamir picks up the poor girl and another owl after his scouts were attacked in an ambush.
Sector is clear. Not clear! Not clear!
After hearing of Alamir's account of the attack, the Guardians decide it's time to go to war. Little do they know, though, that Alamir is a traitor in league with Metalbeak for his own benefit. The Guardians are lured into a trap where they're left paralyzed by the mineral the Alouettes were being forced to mine earlier in the film. Eglantine comes to just in time to tell Soren this, and the band of misfit owls immediately know what to do. Soren, Gilby, Digger, and Twilight fly to St. Egos to defeat the Pure Ones. Upon seeing a group of owls fighting against his soldiers, Metalbeaks assumes Alomir didn't tell him the full truth and rewards him as a traitor deserves. While Soren's friends are busy fending off Metalbeak's troops, the owl himself manages to save the Guardians by destroying the Pure Ones' mineral storage. Metalbeak rallies his troops to get the Guardians while they're still recovering, but the Guardians are too quick. Zilreeb, who had gone to battle with his fellow Guardians, instructs Soren, Gilby, and Digger to stay behind, but Soren runs off to talk sense into Clud. Clud, however, proves to be beyond all reason, and in an attempt to kill Soren, ends up accidentally killing himself. Meanwhile, Zilreeb is going head-to-head with Metalbeak and Naira. He was doing fine against Metalbeak alone, but now he's getting tossed around by the husband and wife team. Wanting to save his mentor and avenge his corrupted brother, Soren arrives to even the odds. Zilreeb managed to cut Naira loose while she's distracted by Soren's fight with Metalbeak. Metalbeak himself manages to corner Soren and attempts to charge him, but the younger owl, on instinct, grabs a burning branch he'd been using as a weapon and makes the bastard impale himself. Naira sees that the day is lost and calls for retreat, while Zilreeb reassures an understandably traumatized Soren that he did the right thing. The film ends with a narration from Soren recapping the end of the story, talking about the honors they received, and giving a possible sequel hook that hints that Clud might not be so dead after all. Pros. The animation in this movie is gorgeous. I say this without hyperbole and with all due respect to the big boy companies like Pixar and DreamWorks, but this is without a doubt the most beautiful 3D animated film I've ever seen. Seriously, there are parts of this movie I'd like to frame on my wall. Whatever these animators were paid, it wasn't enough. Actually, knowing the way animation houses are treated, they probably weren't paid enough. Whatever happened to Jim Sturgis? I remember him being all over the place at the tail end of the late 2000s and the very start of the early 2010s, but now he's just sort of disappeared. Putting that aside, he does a very great job of playing this very Frodo Bagginsy, Luke Skywalker-y, Harry Potter-y type character. He's very much your standard normal boy who aspires to heroism type character. And while that is a cliche character type, I don't think that's a bad thing. Tropes are tools. There are definitely some pretty bad cliche characters, like the stupid worthless father/husband trope that's been done to death in every live-action and animated sitcom since The Simpsons. But for my money, the classic hero's journey archetype is not a bad cliche at all. We love stories like these because they're familiar. We like characters like these. But on the actual manner of Soren and Sturgis' performance, Sturgis does a great job of bringing all the youthful excitement of being a young teen who's going on an adventure. He also does a really good job of playing the hurt and shock at seeing someone like his own brother become someone so hateful and monstrous. And on the matter of just Soren, one detail I really like about that scene when his brother tries to attack him and then fails and breaks his wing, Clud begs Soren to help him. And what does Soren do? A lover of his family until the very end, he tries to save his older brother. And that's a character you can root for. Also, one more thing I like is how shocked and horrified Soren looks after he kills Metalbeak. I've always been a fan of these super heroic characters freaking out at the prospect of killing because, well, villains are usually horrible men. they're still people. Their goals and ambitions may be horrific, but there's still someone out there who cares about them. And if nothing else, it's not on you to decide who lives and dies. That's for a higher power, if you believe in that. Claude's evolution from grumpy, mean older brother to basically an owl Hitler youth is actually really well done. I've heard it described that in the books this movie is based on, that Claude was essentially born evil and had wanted to murder Soren since they were hatched. Well, I'm sure the author did something interesting with that. In my opinion, I think it's more interesting to see something more gradual. When Claude and Soren's father first tries to teach them how to fly, Claude mentions his own view that Taito owls, the Indian verse name for barn owls, are the best species of owls. When we first meet Naira, everyone else is seen reacting with fear because they realize this is a specter of evil, someone intent to harm them somehow, and someone who arranged for their kidnapping. Claude, however, looks on in awe. He sees a figure of beauty, grace, and power. And from that point forward, up until he attacks Grimble, most of his choices are based on his own personal survival. He doesn't speak up when Soren is taken away because, as far as he knew, if he did, he'd be stuck picking away at whatever. At least as a soldier, he might have a chance to escape somehow, or if nothing else, just not die. And when he's being trained for battle through a race, he's pretty ferocious with his competitors, but it's life or death as far as he knows. And when he finally wins, Naira asks him if his brother is as good a flyer as he is. Claude says he can't fly worth a damn purely for the sake of making himself seem more special. That's probably the first moment you really see Claude do something without justification, but it's not yet the same as actively trying to hurt people. He's found himself in a position where he's respected, and doesn't want to lose that because of his stupid little brother. But when we finally come to that moment where he says, I am home, and screeches at Grimble and attacks him, in what is actually a pretty frightening display of aggression and power, but my character is supposed to be pretty young. Also, Ryan Quanten, I believe it is, who played Jason on True Blood, a show I've never even watched, does a pretty kick-ass job when it comes time to turn on the evil.
Evil?
Shut
Evil!
I said shut up! Anyway, nice job, Ryan. Dame Helen Mirren as the evil Queen Naira. What is there to say? How can I describe to you the amazingness of this character? As an actual bad guy, she's pretty standard villainy. She's arrogant, she's posh. If she were an actual human, I feel like she'd probably be flipping her hair every other scene for some reason. She calls herself a queen and feigns being hurt when she's betrayed by Grimble. She screams at her subordinates and says they're fools when they get carried away with their jobs. But what really sells Naira is the sheer presence Helen Mirren brings, and the fact that she can actually kick some ass.
Would you wound your queen, Grimble?
You're not my queen.
Most evil queen types seem to either just sit by and make orders like the Red Queen from Alice in Wonderland, or they do their dirty business with magic, like Maleficent from Sleeping Beauty. But this chick is straight up in the dirty business of leading troops and killing dudes. She is so hardcore, and I absolutely love her. Since I keep bringing up Grimble, I may as well chat about him. First off, serious kudos to Hugo Weaving's performance here. He brings a certain world wariness to the performance. Like, he's someone who's made some pretty awful choices and has had to live with them for a very long time. When he admits that he hates what he's become over the years, you really feel that sense of self-loathing. You get the sense that this guy was probably someone who, once upon a time, the Guardians would have accepted with arms wide open. But now, in his own mind at least, he's too far gone for an honor like that. When he falls to his death, you almost feel a sense of relief for him. Like, thank you for not forcing me to keep living like this. Also, he really tries to play that friendly angle when he talks to Soren and Gilpy, but it's still filtered through that rough touch. He'll play nice, but this is someone who isn't the most patient guy ever. When Naira shows up to confront him, he finally lets out all of that hate for her and the pure ones he's been building up for so many years. When Naira says, "Would you wound your queen, Grimble?" Grimble spits back with,
You're not my queen.
before coming at her with full force. Much love, much respect, Mr. Grimble. Gilpy is not my favorite character by any stretch, but I do really like her. New Zealand actress Emily Barclay does a good job of making a believable progression from a scared little girl to someone with genuine confidence in their own strength. Although it's not like she was weak before, she always had courage. When all the owlets are being rounded up by the pure ones, she's the first one to say, "Let us go!" She just moves from a point where she can make someone let her go. Like when she's seen as one of the owls guarding the catatonic owlets during the climax. And really, isn't that the best lesson in life? That you can go from helpless to a helper to the helpless? Jeffrey Rush as Ilzilreeb. God almighty, do I love this character in this performance. I'm not sure how much I love this character purely for their own merits, i.e., a jaded warrior / scholar who scoffs at the notion of war being glorious, who plays the sort of Dr. Sean McGuire to Soren's Will Hunting, or if I just love this character because of his contrast to the Spartans in 300. Obviously, another film from Mr. Zack Snyder. Because while Leonidas himself doesn't outright covet war, he finds it just as exciting as the rest of the Spartans who do covet it. Just take this quick scene from Michael Fassbender's Stelios.
Why are you smiling?
Arcadian. I've fought countless times. Yet I've never met an adversary who could offer me what we Spartans call a beautiful death. I can only hope, with all the world's warriors gathered against us, there might be one down there who's up to the task.
And then you have Ilzilreeb, who outright says,
You're just not...
So what did you expect? Some Tyto Alba with gleaming armor and battle claws? The moon rising behind him?
Oh.
Well, this is what it looks like when you've actually fought in battle. It's not glorious, it's not beautiful, it's not even heroic. It's merely doing what's right, and doing it again and again, even if someday you look like this.
I just love so much that Snyder made a character who is the spiritual antithesis to one of his most famous works. And I don't even think 300 is a film Zack dislikes. I bet he's incredibly proud of it. But I love the contrast of it. Also, side note, when I was looking for clips of that last scene, I came across this one comment that I thought was just really powerful. I want to share it with all you guys. I want to move on real quick though, but I'd like everyone to pause the video to read this real quick. Alright. Now, what I also like about Izilreeb is, well, he's kind of a crusty old man. There's still a bit of warmth to him. He cares about people, and he cares a lot about people. He takes up a mentor role with Soren because he likes the kid and sees potential in him. I just have a lot of love for this character. There's not much to Digger or Twilight, but I do like what they add to the film. Well, I like what 300 alumni David Wenham adds to the film as Digger. He makes for a funny little side character a la Timon and Pumbaa from The Lion King. Twilight, however, kind of annoys me. A lot. He actually annoys me a lot, to be perfectly honest. But this is the pros, not the cons, and one pro I have for Twilight is he's a really capable fighter. When I first hear him calling himself a poet warrior, I'm inclined to think he's a shit poet who thinks he can fight. But no, he's actually a shit poet who can kick some serious ass. In fact, during the climax, when Digger and Gylfi are protecting the Owlets, and Soren is fighting Clud and then Metalbeak, Twilight is with the Guardians kicking some serious Pure One's ass. Goes to the both of them. Mrs. P doesn't add a lot to this film, but she's a welcome presence. She's actually played by Miriam Margolyes, the actress who portrayed Professor Sprout in the Harry Potter films. So she's okay in my book. And one detail I like is how she doesn't really roll her S's a lot. In most cartoons, when you see a snake character, they put a lot of emphasis on their S's. And I like how Mrs. P just talks normally for the film. She even makes a comment about how she dislikes hissing at people because it's not ladylike, in her opinion. Alamir is basically only there to betray the Guardians, but Sam Neill, yes, that's Sam Neill, does a good job of playing this typical arrogant jerk character who plays the classic "I only barely escaped, and coincidentally all my men died" kind of traitor character. There's not a lot to him, like I said, but hey, I'll let him pass. The score by David Hirschfelder starts very nice and pretty with some shades of the great John Williams, but then quickly shifts into pure epic fantasy. I mean, listen to this. See what I mean? The only other films from this composer that I know of are Aquamarine, which I've seen, and The Water Diviner, which I have not seen, and What the Hell Is Wrong with Me? After listening to this, I hope another filmmaker picks him up for a more noteworthy project than a teen comedy from 2006 starring a Nickelodeon sitcom star and the chick who sang the song that gave this movie its name.
Get out right now. It's the end of you and me. It's too late now. I can't wait for you to be gone. 'Cause
I'm not really a fan of Owl City, to be honest. But again, to be honest, of all the cringeworthy pop artists who emerged in the late 2000s, Owl City is probably on the higher end of that spectrum. And you know what else? At least the catchy pop song at the end of this movie doesn't make me want to take a power drill to my freaking temple!
So just dance, dance, dance.
Anyway, the action in this film is really awesome too. It's keeping up with the same slow-motion flavor from 300 and Watchmen, but here it's less so a pure stylistic choice. It actually serves to make the action a little more clear. If for some reason you may have thought Snyder doing a rated PG animated film intended for children would debone his gift for freaking sweet fight scenes, or if you were unsure how Owl's fighting would even work from a mechanical standpoint, have no fear. Mr. Zack Attack's skills are well on display here, my friends. Well on display.
Wow, the legendary lies of Kill. Once again, it's come down to just you and me. Now I can take my vengeance for this. You should thank me. It appears to be an improvement.
Did I lie? Cons. Metal Beak is a fine villain. He's sufficiently slimy and evil, and Joel Edgerton does an alright job portraying him. So, why is he in the cons? One word. Presence. This dude is supposed to be the lead villain, and he's being upstaged by his lieutenants. He doesn't have Clud's backstory or ferocity. And for as great an actor as Joel is, and he is a really great actor, he's just not Helen Mirren when it comes to sheer friggin' charisma. I'm sorry, pal. You're not Dame Helen Mirren. Twilight annoys the hell out of me. Anthony LaPaglia is a fine actor, I'm sure. I mean, he won an Emmy for a guest spot on Frasier and a Golden Globe for his lead work on Without a Trace. So I assume he has to be at least a halfway decent actor. But dear Lord, does his pompous, arrogant delivery get on my nerves. And the main joke with this character is that he's obnoxious and he's a shit poet. That's it. The poems aren't even comically awful. They're just bad. Like, take Patrick's song from the episode, from the SpongeBob episode, Sing a Song of Patrick.
Twinkle, Patrick Star. I made myself a sandwich. My mommy needed bread. It tastes like beans and bacon and smells like it's been dead. Writing stuff is hard, so I use a pointy pencil. Pointy, 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 point. What's that horrible smell?
it's comedically awful. It's so badly done that it's funny. Twilight's poems and stanzas and all that, they're funny in a way that just is dud. It's just a dud. It doesn't land, it doesn't do anything funny, it's just kind of annoying. What is the actual hierarchy for intelligence with the animals in this film? Like, the owls are the only animals who talk save for Mrs. P and an echidna we meet later on in the film. The pure ones have owl henchmen, but also have bats working for them who seem to more or less behave like normal animals. The echidna has these ravens for disciples who seem to also act like normal animals for the most part. There's a Tasmanian devil. No, not that kind of Tasmanian devil. Yeah, that kind. Early on in the film, but he also behaves like a normal animal. Or she. Could be she. So, where do we draw the line here with what animals are people and what animals are just animals? Anybody got an answer? Anyone? Come on. Bueller? Okay. Before I dig into my final thoughts, I'd like to address something else real quick. I mentioned earlier that this film was based on a series of books. And I also hinted that this film had some pretty serious deviations from the books. Like, for instance, in the books, Clud is Metalbeak. There's plenty more that they changed, but honestly, my main focus is the movie. I didn't talk about the original Dawn of the Dead film from 1978 when I discussed Snyder's remake. I didn't talk about the 300 graphic novel by Frank Miller in my review for its adaptation. I very briefly hinted at how popular the Watchmen comic by Alan Moore is in my review for its adaptation, but otherwise I didn't reference it. So I'll say this. To the fans of the Guardians of the Ga'Hoole series, I'm sorry this isn't the movie you wanted to see. I've been there, I've known what it's like to be really excited to see an adaptation of a book series you adore, only to watch as Hollywood pissed it all away. I know what that's like. It's a crappy feeling. And I understand. I haven't read your books. I'm sure they're great. But right now, I am talking about the movie. And I hope if anyone who's a fan of this series is watching right now, I hope you can understand that, well, whatever happened in those books, it doesn't take away from the movie for me. That's all. Thanks for listening. Legend of the Guardians, The Owls of Ga'Hoole is an absolute delight from start to finish. If Zack and WB decided to make a sequel to it, I would head to the closest theater in my area with an IMAX, buy a pop in a big beautiful bucket of extra buttery popcorn, and I would sit down and I would have the time of my goddamn life. This movie, Dawn of the Dead, and Sucker Punch were the only Zack Snyder films I hadn't seen before I started this series. And honestly, I've enjoyed all three immensely. Owls is a wonderful epic fantasy film that you can sit down with some little kids, not little, more like maybe 4th or 5th grade, and both of you can enjoy it immensely. And on the merits of artistic achievement, God, that sounds pretentious, it shows that Zack Snyder's talents aren't limited to displays of harsh.
Call an ambulance!
Harsh. harsh.
I am not sure if I know what that means.
Violence, or occasional scenes of sexuality. He can also just tell a straightforward story that even your uber-religious grandmother can feel comfortable watching with you. So all of that said, I'm going to give Legend of the Guardians, the Owls of Ga'Hoole a 4 out of 5. Thank you for watching, I hope you've enjoyed this review, and if you did, like this video, comment below, and click subscribe if you feel so inclined. If there's anything I can do to be a better reviewer, please let me know. If there's anything you'd like me to keep on doing, let me know about that too. If this video has caught your interest, please check out the rest of my channel. My last video was a review / birthday present for my younger sister, where I talked about Pitch Perfect. And before that, I sunk my teeth into the monster of a film known as Watchmen. And come back for my review of Sucker Punch. After I take on one jumbo review for Rupert Wyatt and Matt Reeves' Planet of the Apes trilogy. Until then, Woodstock out.